Welcome to Sheepdog Nation Podcast, the only place on the internet where law enforcement and their families can come to be understood, supported, and stood up for. Here's your host, the always entertaining, down-to-earth, yet in-your-face truth speaker and Leo herself, Autumn Schmidt.
What is up, Sheepdog Nation? Welcome to another podcast with your host, me, Autumn Clifford, aka Autumn Schmidt. I'm currently going through a bit of an identity crisis. Uh, my business is all under Autumn Clifford, which is my maiden name, but I just got married, and so I'm transitioning over, and so you're going to hear me say this probably about a million times. Anyways, wanted to welcome you here. Today, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about how to know if you are burnt out and what to do. So I had a really unique opportunity to actually interview and talk to some wives, police wives, about what they saw in their officers when they saw them burning out, and like what some of the what the heck is that called, symptoms, what some of these symptoms were. And the reason why this is such a big deal is because um, as a police officer, we don't really always get to see, right? Like we don't always get to see, what we're acting like. We don't always get to see our symptoms, right? And just like anybody else, like we don't nobody not everybody gets to see how they're acting and how their attitude has changed and all of these things. Sometimes we notice it, but sometimes we absolutely just don't. We have so many things in our lives going on. That's common. But so I thought that this could help you out. I've had several officers reach out to me. I've had several spouses reach out to me and say, Autumn, like this needs to get handled. Like, let's talk about this, which obviously meant a lot to me, because I obviously want to help in every way that I can. I know for me, I definitely got burnt out. I definitely got burnt out. So when I would work too much and I didn't have enough time off, and on my days off, if they were not me like completely like relaxing, doing something fun, not being stressed out, then it was like burning a candle at both ends. It didn't work for me. If I wasn't sleeping enough, I require a lot of sleep. And I'm going to be honest with you, and they say, uh, you do too, actually. If you haven't listened to Colonel Grossman's interview, it's the podcast episode before this one. So just scroll down and get it. And he even talks about how, not getting enough sleep is detrimental to us, and that we can actually act like psychotic with like 48 hours of no sleep and stuff like that. And after he said, like, I believe he said after 18 hours of no sleep, you are a zero point zero 0.08, and after 24 hours, um, you act like you are like a 0.10, as far as your intoxication level. Even though you're not intoxicated, you're just extremely tired. So those are very important statistics for us, especially as police officers, right out there behind the wheel 24/7, with a gun on our hips. So important things. Burnout is something that it, as I'm just going to say this, in law enforcement, we have egos. Okay, you can consider us a little bit more egotistic than on a lot of other kind of careers. First responders, all first responders across the board. EMTs are the same way. Firefighters, the exact same way. Because we go and we have to go to the problem, and we have to take charge, and we have to take control, and nobody's going to tell us anything, right? Like that's how we operate, and it's also a survival mechanism. So I don't want you to think that I'm shitting all over you, because I am by no means doing that. I'm just describing you, or more than likely I'm describing you to you so you can understand this. And the thing about that personality type that we have, of being a type A personality, well, you can imagine. Do you think I'm going to sit here and admit that I'm burnt out? No. You think I'm going to whine and cry about all the overtime that I've been working? Nope, not hardly. Definitely not to anybody that, I work with. None of that. I'm going to suck it up, and I'm going to keep going. And the problem with this is one that's a very old school mentality. Old school meaning when they didn't have all of the things that we have to worry about. Okay, so they could work, and I'm not, listen, if any veteran officers are listening, I'm definitely, veteran officers have my utmost respect. I love veteran officers. I have several in my life, several that I still work with, several that I still go and talk to, and monthly have lunch with, and I really idolize and respect veteran officers. um, but it is a different time than now than it was when they were on the road, and every veteran officer I know will admit that. And so they could kind of relax when they were on duty a little bit more than we can. In this day and age, especially with all the media and everything surrounding, police shootings, and people, police officers, um, getting ambushed. We are hyper vigilant now more than we ever had to be, and we are operating out of a place of fear because we have to. And so that's just the way that it is. And so our stress and our emotions are constantly all over the board. Our stress is like through the roof. And yet, in many departments, we are operating like it was 20 years ago. It's the same exact thing, operating with the same amount of people, or you just added another 5 officers to your complement, and it's great. I mean, I love that we have done that, and bravo. But we need to be adding more officers. There's a lot more crime. There's a lot more issues. We're dealing with a lot more things, a lot more calls for service, and we're not evening that out as far as the agencies aren't, right. So we're not evening that out for the officer, and so the amount of stress, the exhaustion, the burnout rates are much higher. Whether you want to admit it or not, what ends up happening when we end up burning out, our bodies, our minds, just kind of start shutting down. So what does that look like? That looks like you falling asleep on duty. Like you're the kind that you never fall asleep on duty. You love working the overnights, or you like working your 12-hour shifts, or you can handle 16s because you do it all the time. But for some reason, recently your eyes have just been shutting. Like you don't even mean to, you don't know what to do. You can't think clearly. Your brain is so foggy, and you're trying to make decisions, and you're trying to problem solve, figure things out, right? But you just can't. It's like, I don't know. I'm just completely shut off. Things that used to interest you just absolutely do not anymore, right? um Emotions, you are completely emotionless, and the only emotion you have is anger and frustration, right? And you're in your temper, you have a very short fuse. Those things happen and you don't even know that they're happening. But guess who does know? Everyone around you. And if you can hide it at work, you won't be able to hide it for long. Okay? But guess what? You going home, your family, your friends, your spouses, especially the people that you live with, they're going to see it, and they're going to be like dealing with it far before you probably even realize it. Um, so that's a lot of like what the spouses they said to me. I would like to share some things with you that I just thought it was a very unique thing to be able um, to not, and for you to hear from other police wives other than just me, even though I'm a police wife too. Sometimes it's better to hear it from other people, right? So here are some of the symptoms, and I want you to really take note of this. And if you're like, geez, I can't tell, you go right home and you text your spouse right now and you ask them. So here are some symptoms: moody and tired and grumpy all the time, and didn't want to talk about work as much as the officer used to. The officer is not as passionate about his job at all. Feels very micromanaged, feels overworked, becomes very hostile against his coworkers. I can tell you that I've experienced that. And if you've been on the road any length of time, I know you have too. And I have several episodes talking about this, but I'm going to talk about it again because there needs to be a change, sheepdogs. There needs to be a change in this. Why are we so quick to turn our backs on the people who literally have to have our backs, have to take a bullet for us, who are saving us, in so many situations that help us, and very high stressful situations, like why are we turning our backs to them so quickly, and why are we shunning them, and why are we being, we're just being, mean. I don't even know any other words to say. We're being so disrespectful to them, and we're stabbing them in the backs. And why are we doing that? Like, why? I mean, yes, I get it. Clearly, some of us are doing it because of the burnout. Like, we feel so burnt out because of the burnout rate. But are those the people like that we want to be cutting out of our lives and being hostile to? And like, this needs to change for everybody. It's not gonna get better if one officer has this epiphany and then like everybody else is still, stabbing them in the back and being disrespectful and not truly caring about that officer. Like, that's not gonna like help. It's not gonna make things better. In fact, it'll probably make things worse for that officer who's trying. But what will help is if we all, as a team, as a family, as part of the thin blue line, if we all just take a step back and we are a lot slower to, stab one another in the back, to, you know, turn our, coworkers into the supervisors, to, belittle them, do anything that we can to make sure that they don't get promoted, do anything that we can to make them feel like less than. We have to do it as a family, and we have to come together, and we really have got to unite. And honestly, that's a goal of mine. That's a dream of mine. I hope that is for you, but it can start now with your attitude. Um, Not getting enough days off is definitely a symptom. A lot of wives talked about how their husbands, when they were working constantly, like they'd have one day off, or even on like their days off, they would have to get called in, or they'd be on call. The burnout rate is extremely high at this point. Okay. And you need to recognize that. Being rude, being snappy, fatigued to the point that a solid night's sleep just is not enough. Binge eating, binge drinking, extra quiet, doesn't communicate. Um, let's see. A lot. Okay, so a wife brought this up, and I thought that this was extremely important to talk about. Was how meaning her officer, would get extremely embarrassed to discuss this with her, and that so he wouldn't, so he shut down. But she could tell, because I'm just going to give you guys like a bit of advice. Like, your spouse knows you better than you know you. Like, I know Adam like the back of my hand. I know when he's upset. I know when he's, going through things. I know when he's had a hard call. I know when he's experienced all these things, and he doesn't have to say a word. And it's true for him too. He knows he can read me like a book, and I know you can read your spouse like a book, but don't forget that they can do the exact same thing to you. They may not be a cop, or they may be, but they don't have to be a cop. They know you, they love you, you are it for them, you are the center of their lives, and you need to understand that. Like, understand, you know um that you are their everything, and that they study you. As scary as it sounds, they absolutely study you, and they know when something's off. And so this wife talked about how, you know, her officer just felt like he was a coward for like feeling burnt out, and like that broke her heart, and she didn't know what to do. But she would talk with him and talk with him, and eventually, like, they came, to a resolution that he would talk with her, and when, he was feeling burnt out, he would actually take some personal time off. And I thought that was really, really good. But that was really good on the sheepdog's end too, for being open to that. But I want you to know that if you're feeling burnt out, I just want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know that every single officer goes through this. But here's the difference. Here's the difference between the officers that end up, surviving, being amazing leaders and role models, and, going forward to help change law enforcement for the better. Those people, it's not that they never, experienced burnout. It's not that they never experienced bad things, traumatizing things. It's not that they've never gone through any of that. They just learned how to handle it. They learned how to move through it, their emotions better. Okay? They didn't shove everything down, because they can't. Because you can't shove everything down and then expect to be like, you know, a wicked kick ass cop. It's not gonna work, because eventually that stuff's gonna come back up. The people that are surviving law enforcement, and not only surviving but flourishing, are the officers who have absolutely figured out how to deal with their emotions. Dealing with your emotions does not mean getting mad and like punching a bunch of holes through the wall, or binge eating, binge drinking, any of that stuff. That's not dealing with your emotions. Dealing with your emotions is like looking in the mirror and being like, hey, look, like, yeah, this sucks, right? Like this sucks. I feel like this, but I'm gonna move through it. And if you can't move through it, then that's when you reach out to me, okay? Or somebody like me, if there's somebody that you trust. But a lot of times cops don't trust counselors. But that's when you reach out to somebody like me, and that's when you have a conversation with somebody like me, and you're like, hey, I need a confidential session, and we just need to talk. I need to get things off my chest, and I want your point of view because it's objective, Autumn, and like da 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 da. And that's when you reach out to somebody like me. Okay, that's why I run what is called a life coaching business. It's not to fix you because you're broken. It's to help you move through something because you're stuck. It's to help you move to the next level because you're at a plateau. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because you're not broken. Okay, let's see. A couple other ones. It's the same thing, constant headaches, short temper, miserable. Um, some wives talked about like when their officer hit, rock bottom, like with their burnouts because they were in such denial. Some wives talked about how, their marriages were really at stake, and they had very serious conversations with their sheepdog, with their spouses, and was like, listen, if you don't get this shit together, like this, we're not moving forward. And so that's not good. Politics, like letting the politics run you and be getting so wrapped up in the politics that you cannot think straight. And so then what happens? You're so angry. You're just so angry with the job, angry with everybody. You feel like you can't trust anybody. And, so all of these are just really important, really good symptoms, things for you to, ask somebody close to you, or pay attention to yourself. So now that we know what burnout looks like, right? Okay, so what do we do about it? That's the big question. Okay, so here are some things. First, take some time off. Take time off. You have holiday pay, vacation, personal PTO time, personal time off, sick time, bang out sick. It's a mental health day. Like, do what you need to do. Take time off. Okay. Um, Stop signing up for so much overtime. Stop making bad financial decisions that put yourself in a situation to where you need to work all the time. What does that look like? You don't need the most brand new, vehicle. You don't need a big boat. You don't need a brand new snowmobile. You don't need a brand new four wheeler. You don't need to live in the Taj Mahal, right? Like, the truth, the sad, sad truth is you're a police officer or you're a first responder, and like that income, it's just not great. It just isn't. And so while there are ways around that, there's other episodes on this podcast for that. Please feel free. You just scroll through the titles and you'll see them. Um, you know, you need to not put yourself in a situation that you have got to work 24/7 so that you are not burnt out, or you need to start getting, looking for an agency that's going to pay you more. Getting paid more to do less is really the key here. Okay. Taking the time off, talking with somebody, talk with your spouse, talk if you have somebody to, confide in, or you hire me, you work with me, somebody who gets you. You would be surprised what a weekly or an every other week, session, you would be so surprised what that would do for you. Again, it's not counseling, okay? Because there's nothing wrong with you. I'm not going to fucking diagnose you. And there's nothing wrong with you. That's what you need to know. You need to start doing things that you love to do, especially while you're on patrol. Like, if you spend all your time working, then do the things that you love to do while you're there. Focus your time on things that you love. Do what is expected, and then go do what you love to do. Focus on that. Start bringing the focus back to you, sheepdog. What do you love? What lights you up? What makes you happy? What gives you that fire, feeling, burning, like your burning fire sensation in your stomach? Like, what is that? Because that is gold, and that is what's going to change your life. And start doing that off duty too. And whatever issues you are having that are completely stressing you out off duty, handle them and face them head on. Face them with, compassion and empathy, but also with tenacity because you want to solve those issues. Do not just swipe those issues under the rug. If you're miserable in a relationship, if you're miserable in your marriage, if you're miserable at your living situation, if you're miserable with your weight, if you're miserable with whatever it is, handle it. Because shoving those emotions down are not helping you. And it is actually helping you get to burnout faster. But what seems to be the quickest way for officers to overcome feeling burnt out is to work less and take a significant amount of time off. Take a week off, take 4 or 5 days off, whatever you need to do, but take that time. If you can afford to go on like a little vacation, go do it. If you can afford to go just stay someplace other than your house, go do it. But you know what? Maybe you have children and a family and all you want to do is go stay home, then do that. Whatever it is, do that, but enjoy it. Soak that time up and do more of it. Don't wait until the next time you're feeling burnt out to take time off. Take time off every couple of months, or even monthly. Take 1 day off, 1 or 2 days off, and have an extended fucking weekend every month. Okay? I mean, that's why, you have the sick time, and this is why you have all this vacation and comp time and all that. And there's no shame in that. I mean, yes, listen, you're gonna get it from the old officers, and you're gonna get it from your supervisors and everything. Oh yeah, so and so he doesn't like to work overtime. Oh, it takes all this time off, blah blah blah. But you need to take time off for yourself. And the policing world and the first responders world, it just isn't the way that it used to be. So there's no shame in that. Okay. I hope this helped. I wanted to let you know that if you haven't already, I have a opt-in. It's a free opt-in. It's a free checklist. And what it is for is for your healthy, it's like, I'm calling it like what you need to put in your duty bag, like the Healthy Sheepdogs duty bag. And basically it's my 5 things, my top 5 things that I use to replace like Advil and Tums and Pepto-Bismol, and that really help with my anxiety and to help me while I was on duty and off duty, to combat some of that shit that we do. We get the constant headaches, we get the constant heartburn, constant upset stomach. I had that every single day that I worked patrol. And so instead of eating Advil like candy, I had found some more just alternative options. And anyway, so if this is something that you're interested in, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to my Instagram at the Lady Sheepdog, and then in that bio is going to be the link for that. Okay. All right. I will talk to you later.
And that was another episode of Sheepdog Nation. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes and let us know by giving us a rating. If you have questions that you want answered by Autumn in the podcast, submit it by going to the link in the show notes. As always, stay safe and watch your six.